Yo, what is up guys? It is your boy Zether, back at it again with part 2 for What If Deku Had Lady Nagants Quirk. On the last part, you guys seemed to actually enjoy it quite a bit and you guys ended up slashing the like button. So as promised guys, I'm back to bring you guys another banger. I'm telling you guys, it's going to be banger after banger from now on. 2 videos a day, I can promise you guys that much. But you know, I don't really want to jabber on for too long since you guys are not here to hear me talk. Well, technically you are, but not here to, hear anything other than what if. That being said, though, guys, I don't want to waste your guys' time, so we're just gonna go ahead and oh God, unprofessional. I promise I don't have COVID. Get started. Okay guys, COVID Zether's gone. No, but seriously, where we had left off on the last part, I had pretty much said, and this one, Deku would proceed to lunge at Bakugo, and this is when Bakugo would pretty much proceed to spin in the air, using his explosions, as he would basically jump on over Deku, but Deku would have actually been expecting this, as he would slide onto the ground, and he would shoot his blaster straight at Bakugo's face, actually blinding him. The gun that he would have actually created would have been something that shoots out smoke grenades, and he would have blasted that straight into Bakugo's face, sending him flying back. As Deku would proceed to get up, and he would then create a giant scythe in his hand, as he would then proceed to blitz on over to Bakugo, and he would then proceed to use the air to basically get even with Bakugo, as he was actually maneuvering in the air, shooting nothing but AP shots at, our boy Deku, but your boy is a sniper. So he would then jump back doing a flip, as he would then aim his arm and shoot Bakugo in the leg with 2 sniper bullets just to graze him, since he doesn't exactly want to kill him, and the bullets that he's actually using are plastic just to make sure that he doesn't harm Bakugo too much. That being said though, he would continue to basically whip out 2 submachine guns from his arms, as he would then blast them towards Bakugo, and Bakugo would start getting overwhelmed by all of the bullets, as Bakugo would say enough, and he would blast a giant amount of dirt into the air, as Deku would have ended up getting blinded by all that and not know where Bakugo is. But since Deku doesn't know, what makes you guys think that Bakugo would? As Deku would proceed to change his locations, and as soon as Bakugo would actually try to blitz over to Deku and catch him off guard, Deku would actually be gone, and he would actually be at the opposite side, as he would blast Bakugo in the head with a clean shot, knocking Bakugo onto the ground, and Deku would proceed to basically flip on over to Bakugo, as he would smack him in the back of the head on some Uzumaki barrage type stuff. And this is when Bakugo would actually drop down and start holding the back of his head, as he would say, what'd you have to take it so far for? As Deku would say, calm down, you would have done the same thing to me if the opportunity presented itself. As Bakugo would say, guess you're kinda right. Well, looks like the score's 20-61 now. Doesn't look too good for me. As Deku would proceed to say, yeah, I guess. And this is when we would then basically have them both just laugh a little bit, and they would then end up going their own separate ways, getting ready for the big day tomorrow, seeing as that's their first day of school. Before they actually leave, however, Bakugo would ask Deku if he wants to walk over there with him, as Deku would say of course, and they're going to meet each other in the train station the very next day. That being said, we're just going to skip on over to that, and Naruto and Bakugo would end up meeting each other, as they would fist bump, and they would end up basically saying that this is about to be awesome. The school of their dreams, they finally made it. And Bakugo would then proceed to say, who do you think the teacher's going to be? As Deku would proceed to say that he doesn't know, but he hopes it's somebody strong, seeing as he knows that all the teachers in UA are pro heroes. He's hoping that it can be somebody who can actually help him with his quirk. But he actually does know that one hero there actually can, this being the hero Snipe. Yes sir, you guys know what's gonna happen with him in this series. That being said though guys, we would then have Deku and Bakugo basically walking in class, and this time they would actually pick different seats than they do in canon. They would be in like the middle row, and as you know, Deku and Bakugo were sitting down just talking. This is when they would basically have a couple of the other students arrive in the class a little later, about 10 minutes, and a lot of the girls would actually notice Deku in the back with his little man bun hair and everything just looking ripped. They would immediately take a lot of liking towards him. All the more bolder girls would definitely end up looking towards him. And as soon as a particular person actually walks inside, she would end up actually sitting right next to Deku, thinking that, oh yeah, this guy right here, he's amazing. As we would then have basically Uraraka walk inside, and as she was actually going to thank Deku, she would actually notice Bakugo sitting right next to him, and she would immediately be breathtaking, and she would say, yep, that's my man's. That's my man's right there. The ponytail boy, yeah. Thank you. Next, as we would then basically have Uraraka and Bakugo talking a bit, and Uraraka would say, "Is that your friend over there?" As Bakugo would say, "Yeah, that's it's Deku." As we would then basically have Deku basically saying that, yeah, that's what he calls me. As Uraraka would say, "Oh, that's pretty cool," and they would begin to talk for a little bit. But this is when Mr. Aizawa would come in out of nowhere with his usual, "You guys are here to make friends. I suggest you leave, yada, 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 yada." We all know the drill. That being said, he would tell them all to essentially go take their costumes on, and this is when everybody would end up going to get changed. As soon as sorry, I just recorded a Naruto video. What if Naruto had Bakugo's Quirk? Go check that out after you're done with this video, by the way. Anyways, that being said, though, we would then basically have Bakugo and Deku getting changed, as Kirishima would say, "Wow, guys, you guys are ripped. What do you guys do?" As he would say, "What's your name, bro?" As he would ask Midoriya that, and he would end up saying that his name is actually Izuku Midoriya. As you know, we would then have our boy Kirishima saying, "The name's Kirishima." As he would say, "Dude, you're built like a Greek god." As we would then have Kirishima basically just starting to basically fawn all over Deku's body, and Deku would begin to basically laugh a little bit, as they would all end up getting changed, and they would meet Aizawa outside in the area. Of course, Mineta would have still been a perv, and he still would have gotten stabbed in the eye by, well, Jiro. And this is when they would basically go outside, as everybody would basically be in their little gym attires. We would then have Aizawa basically telling Deku to throw the ball as far as he can, with Deku catching the ball in his hand, as he would say, "So, I just gotta throw it far, right?" As Aizawa would say, "That's the point. Now, get it over with." As we would then have Deku basically saying, "So, I can do anything as long as I'm in this circle, right?" As Aizawa would say, "Yeah, pretty much." This is when Deku would proceed to get a smart idea, and he would turn his arm into a cannon. But instead of putting the normal fuel in there, he would kind of just put the baseball in there, and he would end up aiming his hand at the sky. He would end up blasting it over to Hosu City, and it would end up getting about 1,760 something meters. Actually, not 3,000 something meters. Let's make this go big or go home. You get me? So 3,000 something meters. We would then have Aizawa show the rest of the class, and everybody would be extremely hyped about what they're going to be doing. That being said, everybody else would go up there and would get these same exact scores as in canon, except Bakugo would get double the score that he actually got in the original. And we would then have Deku and Bakugo basically just going through this portion of this exam, going through it relatively easily. Bakugo would do better in some parts that, you know, Deku wasn't that, you know, well suited for, and Deku would do better in other sections than Bakugo, meaning that Bakugo and Deku would be top 1 and 2, with Deku being 1, of course, seeing as you know, this is the main character. That being said, though, we would then basically have them end all of the tests, as they would end up getting amazing scores on the long jump, seeing as Deku can pretty much just walk over it, and Bakugo can just fly over it, essentially. And on the grip strength test, they both would have instantly shattered that thing. In terms of the normal side-to-side steps, they definitely would have done amazing in terms of that stuff. And Bakugo would have had an upper hand, seeing as he has the explosions. So he could just go bam, 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 side to side, you get me? That being said, though, we would then essentially have Bakugo and Deku smiling and putting on their jackets afterwards, as they would say, "That was pretty cool." As this is when a girl with black hair and a ponytail would be looking at Deku, kind of, you know, biting on her nail a little bit. She's kind of nervous every time that she looks at him. She finds him so attractive. We would then basically have Deku walking off with Bakugo, as this girl actually being Momo Yaoyorozu, I'm pretty sure all you guys could tell this was going to be the ship, would end up basically grabbing onto Deku's shoulder. She would say, hey, I saw you back there in the quirk exam. Your name is Izuku Midoriya, right? As we would then have Deku saying, yeah, you're Momo Yaoyorozu, right? She would say, oh, yeah, you know my name? As Deku would say, of course I do. Of course I would have noticed the prettiest girl in the class. As we would then have her blush a little bit, and Deku would then basically lean on the wall a little bit as he would say, so, what's up? As we would then basically have Momo just like looking down a little bit, and she would say that, I thought you were really impressive, as Deku would then proceed to basically chuckle a little bit and say, yeah, I think you're pretty attractive too. As we would then basically have Momo and Deku be towards the wall, as Deku would essentially proceed to look towards Momo and would put his hand on the wall as he would basically have Momo trapped a little bit. And this is when he would basically ask if she wants to go out sometime. As Momo would just go dark red, she'd be tomato, and she would basically not know what to say. She'd be like tickling her fingers on some weird Araka stuff. She would say, yeah, when? As Deku would say, how about tomorrow night? It'd be pretty cool, you know, after school. As, you know, we would then have Momo saying, yeah, totally. As, of course, we're then basically going to skip on over to the next day, which, you already know, guys, we're definitely going to be having to have the heroes versus villains the very next day. Of course, everything that you guys would expect to happen in this event, leading up to this event, would happen as normal. We would have Deku and Bakugo basically hanging out, creating their own separate friend group other than Uraraka and Ida. Instead, the friend group would actually go as follows. We would actually have Kirishima, Deku, Bakugo, and Uraraka being like the main group of friends, with Momo actually tagging along with Deku more and just trying to get to know him a little bit more, with Momo and Deku occasionally flirting here and there. That being said, though, we would then essentially cut to the heroes versus villains, where All Might says, I am here, walking in like a normal person, as he would then basically explain to all of them that they're going to be taking this really dope quirk assessment. And this is when we would then have everybody get their cool like hero suits. As for cool purposes, I'm gonna say that Deku's hero costume is, it kind of looks like an Anbu costume, but just like the super modern version. And what I mean by Anbu costume is that he would basically have like a sleeveless version of the Anbu costume, because he can turn his arms into weapons, so he kind of needs them to be exposed. That being said, though, we then essentially have your boy Deku just basically going through the normal events, and as soon as he comes out, oh, class 1A females, they're drooling a little bit. That's all I'm gonna say. They drooling a little bit. My boy Deku looking kind of fresh. That being said, though, we'll then essentially have Deku be announced the teams by All Might. As of course, we gotta have our boy Bakugo and Deku on the same team. I feel sorry for whoever's gonna face them. And who are they gonna face? You may be wondering. Oh yeah, they're gonna fight Kirishima and Todoroki. This battle is going to be a lot of fun to cover. Since Momo would of course be with our boy Mineta, before they can even go onto their own teams, before Mineta could even be all over Momo and be like a creep like he normally is, Deku would actually end up walking over to him and telling him that if he touches her or so much as looks at her, he's gonna put a bullet in his brain and send him 6 feet under. As he would turn his arm into a sniper that Lady Nagant has in the little thumbnail, I guess we could say. We would then basically have Mineta saying, yes, it won't happen. As we would then basically have Deku saying good. As we would essentially then have Deku pretty much just going inside with Bakugo, as they would say, so what's the plan? As Bakugo would say, I'll handle Icy Hot, you handle Hardening Boy over there. As we would then have Deku basically say, don't you mean Kirishima? As Bakugo would say, you know what I mean. That's just the nickname I gave him. As Deku would say, oh, so you're giving other people your little nicknames, huh? As Bakugo would say, shut it, they're coming. As, we would of course have Kirishima running in there as he would be, reeling his arm back, ready to punch Bakugo. But as that happens, Bakugo would just say, "You can handle this, right?" As Deku would say, "Of course I can." As Bakugo would explode away from there, dodging the punch, leaving Deku to be open, as he would create two giant scythes. He would then be able to not hold back that much, because Kirishima's hardening quirk would make it a lot easier for Deku to actually use his abilities to the fullest. He wouldn't quite be able to use his airwalk ability, so not many of the people in the class would even realize. And actually, let's say that in the quirk exam, he didn't even use airwalk. He's gonna whip it out later on just to shock them all. That being said, though, let's just say that instead of that, he just jumped and he was able to clear the whole thing on some superhuman stuff. That being said, though, we would then basically have Deku fighting against Kirishima. He would then end up, taking out some bullets and just running away from Kirishima, having some fun, using him as a little bit of target practice. Deku would proceed to wear down Kirishima's hardening until he would begin to crack. And this is when Deku would proceed to basically, turn the corners. Kirishima was running at him saying, "Don't run away, be a man." We would then basically have Deku say that he is one. As he would turn the corner, Kirishima would then get slammed in with like a little piece of I guess you could say Deku would just come in and punch this man on the crack, sending Kirishima crashing into the wall and shattering that piece that Deku punched. As he would then end up, shaking his hand a little bit, seeing as that quite hurt a lot. And we would then basically have Bakugo going over to Todoroki, as that entire area would be frozen. But seeing as Bakugo has the gauntlets that can pretty much regulate and make his hands sweat a lot, that wouldn't be an issue whatsoever. Bakugo would proceed to dominate this man. I know he has his ice, but Bakugo would just proceed to destroy it, just as he did in the festival. And he would end up approaching Todoroki. As Todoroki wouldn't be able to keep him away, Bakugo would end up obliterating this man. I mean, atomizing this man with his explosions, sending Todoroki flying into the next room. And he would end up touching the bomb, as they would end up actually winning. And the rest of the people would end up having their normal events happen per usual. Everybody would, have their normal stuff happen. And, our normal stuff would, pretty much be going down. Not gonna lie, guys, I kind of cut the recording a little bit, but, your boy back. That being said, though, as I was saying, essentially that entire day would pretty much play out, as everything else would be per usual. And honestly, everything else doesn't really matter. Now we're gonna get on over to the juicy stuff. Our boy Deku would end up basically getting changed into his outfit that he was going to wear with Momo. And after school, Momo would immediately ask Deku where they're going to go. As Deku would actually end up saying that first, he wants to take her number down. As Momo would say, oh yeah, right, I totally forgot about that yesterday. Sorry for running off, I just got so nervous. As Deku would say that it's fine, and he would then end up saying, so how are they going to get there? She wants to take the train or something? As Momo would say, oh, I kind of already had that set up for us. As Deku would then see a limousine and a butler just waiting for them. As Deku would say, what? You're filthy stinking rich. As he would look straight towards her, and she would then say, is this too much? As Deku would say, a little bit. How about we just walk there? As Momo would kind of look down a little bit, and Deku would then say, or we could do your way. As Momo would begin to smile, and we would then essentially have Deku just go through this and basically hang out with Momo. He would have a pretty good time. That being said, though, we would then basically have Momo and Deku arrive at the fanciest restaurant in all of Japan. It would be floating in the air and like literally in the sky, and all the food would be like $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 a plate. That, 1,000, that's peasant stuff. Come on now, we ain't with all that stuff. We rich around this, MOFO. You guys know what that means. But anyways, that being said, though, of course, little stuff like that would of course be occurring, and we would then essentially have Deku ending off the day with Momo going back to her place. As after this whole time, Deku would have actually been able to take her layers off one piece at a time. He'd be able to crack her shell and get her to open up a little bit, making Momo be less, shy, I guess you could say. And Deku would end up just basically making her blush the entire time. As Deku would walk Momo home, he would end up asking her if she's willing to let him come inside to have a little bit of a study session. He's trying to get caught up on that math since he kind of sucks at it. And Momo would, of course, oblige. So we would then proceed to basically have Deku and Momo studying a little bit. And you guys know what that all means. And Deku and Momo would proceed to, saying, have a pretty good day, to say the least. That being said, though, guys, this one, we're basically going to have everybody essentially go back to Class 1A, and they would end up basically just going through with the rest of their days. Everything would basically go by pretty standard, pretty chill, and we're basically just going to cover about 1 week's worth of training, with Deku and Momo getting to know each other a little bit, and Bakugo training with Uraraka separately. That's essentially their little dynamic that they're going to be having for the moment. But guys, with that being said though, guys, if you guys are going to be wanting a part 3 to What If Deku Had Lady Nagants Quirk, which I'll actually be covering the entirety of the USJ, it's usually a 1 week training, but I make it 2 weeks all the time, as well as the UA Sports Festival. So if you guys want to get that the very next day, make sure to tell a friend, to tell another friend, to share the channel, subscribe, turn those post notifications on since you of course want to be notified, and go down below and report that you're here, because I'm taking attendance down below in the comments. That being said though, guys, you guys know the drill. It has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.